Apollo, listen, a lot of information in the news about cryptocurrency, right? The Bitcoins of the world and the other varied products that are out there. So what's your take on this supposed new currency that's out there that's going to rule the world?
Right. It is on people's minds. I mean, you can see this in the way that it's popping up in conversations. It's on websites everywhere you go. It's like Bitcoin, what's going on there? So it's understandable why some people might be curious about it. So what I like to do is maybe give you a few perspectives on Bitcoin, starting exactly with what it is. Bitcoin was created years ago after the financial crisis as a way to be able to almost be an electronic currency instead of the dollar, because at the time people were saying, well, these are currencies that are regulated by the government. What if we have a currency that's not regulated by the government? So it was designed to be that medium of exchange and as a currency. And it turns out that it never panned out to be quite a currency, because when you think of a currency, there are three things that make it useful. The first one is that it's a medium of exchange, meaning that if I wanted to go buy something, I can use Bitcoin. Right now, it's not really possible. Very, very few places take it, even though it's been around for a long time. And it's not really expected that it's going to take off and everybody will be accepting it, particularly since transaction costs are quite high. If you want to buy a coffee, the transaction cost could be higher than the coffee itself. The second thing is the unit of account. That means that we are quoting prices in Bitcoin. That's not necessarily the case. Nobody quotes anything in Bitcoin. I've never heard of a price, and it would be like in super fractions, 0.000 whatever. So I don't see this either as a currency. And the third one is so we have the medium of account, we have the unit of account, medium of exchange, and also the third one is store of value. That if I have a certain amount of Bitcoins, that I can roughly purchase the same thing with those. And that's not necessarily the case, because from a day-to-day basis, it can go up 10-20% in any given day. So certainly it doesn't pass the mustard, and it's not really viewed as a currency. And a lot of people in the government also don't see it as a currency, because from a tax perspective, it is considered to be a commodity. So let's just make it not necessarily a currency. Could it become at some point? It's very unclear. So let's look at some considerations for folks who might just say, okay, well, it's a commodity, so why don't I treat it as a commodity and maybe think about buying some. So what are some of the main considerations? And I'll point to 5 things that I found quite interesting about Bitcoin. The first one is that when we look at a stock or a bond or a building for that matter, I'd like to think in my own head as being a productive asset, meaning that if I buy a stock, I'm becoming part owner into a company, and that ownership entitles me to part of the profits and the earnings that the company will make. So there's something tangible and productive about that. They're real people, real products, real profits, and I partake in those, and I can get a sense of how to value that investment. When you talk about a bond, well, I know there's a contract that specifies an interest rate and what am I going to receive in interest on the money that I put in that bond, and for how long. So in that respect, once again, I know what I'll be getting. When you buy a building, you're going to collect rent and make some money. So all of these are assets that can be valued because they have some productive capacity. When you're thinking about Bitcoin, it's none of that. It doesn't have any of those. It doesn't pay any interest, and it doesn't produce anything. And I can't really tell you what where its value is derived from. So valuing this Bitcoin is, to me, it's impossible, because it relies on this notion that other people might think in the future that it's worth more. Well, that's, to me, is a definition of speculation. I have no idea if I'm getting a good deal or not a good deal on the valuation of Bitcoin relative to the other investments that right now have a way of being valued. So that's the first thing. The second thing that comes to mind is that I want to know why exactly do I want to hold this? Because Bitcoin as a whole is just smaller than Apple. So that's the entire Bitcoin universe is smaller than one single company. So why do I want to hold it? What's that important to me? Is it because I'm afraid that I'm missing out? Is it the fear of missing out? Or what's exactly the reason? And how is it helping me to achieve my goals that are stated in the financial plan? And what I found is that talking to a lot of people, it is the fear of missing out. And when they do this, they keep thinking of the money they could be making. But the reality is that you should also be thinking about all the money that you could be losing. So when you think, how can it help me achieve my financial goals? It's not about getting returns irrespective of risk. And crypto is very risky once again because we don't really know what drives its valuation. Now, if you're buying this for its entertainment value, it's a substitute to a trip to Vegas during the pandemic, well, that might be the case. That takes some money the same way that you would go to Vegas and buy a bit in Bitcoin and have that entertainment element to your life. That's so you have the valuation issue, you have the why exactly do you want to own it. The third one is this idea that when you have the technology behind Bitcoin, that's called blockchain, that is a very viable technology, and it's starting to be used in many places, but it's not necessarily the case that the technology will be there, so will Bitcoin. We've seen this in many forms. Remember, Greg, way back in the day, there was something called a Palm Pilot. And that Palm Pilot was the very first device to be a personal digital assistant. Some of the younger folks on the call might not remember it. I remember having that. And what you think about it, the technology, the idea of having electronic calendar and electronic address book and contacts and notes, that is with us today, but not the PDA itself, not the Palm Pilot. It's possible that the technology, the blockchain, is very likely will be with us, but I'm not sure about Bitcoin itself because there are several thousands of other cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin is just one of the many. So which one do you choose? So once again, it's a little tricky there when you think about that. The next part that I want to touch on is this idea of logistics. Right now, it's really important that to know that when you have Bitcoin, there is no number, toll-free number or otherwise, that you can call if something happens. It's a digital wallet that resides on a computer that comes with a password. And if you lose the password or the hard drive, then there is no way to retrieve the money. It's gone forever. It's estimated about a third of all the Bitcoins in the world are not in circulation because people might have lost their passwords or hard drive. There was a great article in the New York Times not long ago where somebody with over $200 million in Bitcoin forgot the password. How many of us have not forgotten passwords? And this person had 10 tries before that account was locked forever. And he had missed the first 8, so he was struggling with the last 2. And then there goes $200 million. So it's a legitimate concern. The logistics around Bitcoin right now are not as steady. If you have your money in the bank, you lose your password, you call them up, in a few minutes you have access to your money. Not so with Bitcoin. And the last thing is that it does introduce an element of complexity that might not be worth the trouble, because if you have Bitcoin, you might have a little bit, but it will trigger taxes. You will trigger accounting things that might not be worth the trouble when it's all said and done. So ultimately, when these considerations have kind of led me to believe is that Bitcoin, it's interesting, but it's not worth the trouble. It's a very risky investment. It's unclear how it can help me achieve my financial goals in a more robust way. But if I really care about the entertainment value, if I care about the social element so I can talk to my buddies about having Bitcoin, maybe it's worth putting a few bucks in there just to see what happens. But from an investment perspective, I would not consider anywhere close to the same category of stocks and bonds. So, Greg, it was a long-winded answer, but I think it's an important topic. I think people are curious. And just right now, it doesn't seem to me a situation where you're missing out, because even as you see it going up, you also have to realize there's a very real potential of doing exactly the opposite, and it might not be in your financial best interest. You already have a plan. I know that Greg has been talking for many years about the importance of a financial plan. And if you have that financial plan, you are better off sticking with it, because it's really trying to get you from point A to point B, while paying attention to risk, not irrespective of risk.
Well, listen, you hit all the points. And I think from our side, the key components of what you mentioned, first of all, we know it's speculative. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, you want to have some fun, go do it. And as I tell my folks, we're for serious money. If you want to go play with Bitcoin, go play with it somewhere else. But I think a key thing is where we are so planning centric here. When you build a legitimate financial plan, a lot of folks are just, I know my numbers, they really don't, because they're not factoring all of the intricacies of the market, not only from taxes and inflation, but the fact that a portfolio that is legitimate, in our view, is, we keep repeating, is diversified globally, but importantly has real assets in it that are measurable. And as you pointed out, Apollo, Bitcoin's not the last one that's going to be like this. There'll be more, and they'll keep coming. And the challenge for us is not Bitcoin. The challenge is the media, and what the media allows it to become in the view of the public, where you said it, and as a matter of fact, it's very funny. Our recent blog we did with Chris here was about FOMO, fear of missing out. What am I missing out on? And that's probably the biggest driver behind Bitcoin is, from my view, clients who ask about it have that fear of like, why are we in it? Why are we in it? But when we get back to the planning phase and discuss how our planning discipline differs from having those type of ultra speculative investments in there, if you want to even call it that, they get back to the point of going, you know what, I appreciate the value of a plan that is modeled off of historical perspective, not guesswork. So thank you once again, Apollo. Great view, great overview, because Bitcoin gets so much,
it gets so much attention, Greg. And it's funny because, it kind of made me think Bitcoin is everything you don't understand about computers combined with everything you don't understand about money. What can go wrong?
Exactly. And that's great. That's really well put. So listen, thanks again for your time. Great topic. I'm sure we'll be revisiting the next, whatever it is in a year from now, but we'll catch up again. Apollo, thanks again.
It's great seeing you again.
Thanks for being with us today. And please follow us on all our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We look forward to seeing you on the other side.